this meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues in the Senate who are here, physically present. Ang ating napakasipag na senadora, my kumare, Senator Pia Cayetano. Ma'am, thank you for attending. And of course, wala pa ibang yung sa ating virtual wala pa. So, also I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Mark Villar, Senator Win Gatchalian. Thank you. Oh, happy birthday, my kinakapatid.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Sige. Today's hearing. Today's hearing is for the purpose of organizing this committee and to briefly meet with our counterpart in the executive, the Department of Public Works and Highways. Firstly, may I formally put into the record that the Committee on Public Works has a total of 13 members. Our members include this representation as your chairperson, Senator Win Gatchalian and Senator Mark Villar as your vice chairpersons. And as members, Senator Jingoy Estrada, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Manuel Lito Lapid, Robin Hood Padilla, Senator Victor Ejercito, Senator Aimee, Senator Francis Tol Tolentino, Rapi Tulfo, Senator Risa Ontiveros. Of course, ex-officio members include Senate Pro Tempore Loren Legarda, Majority Leader Senator Joel Villanueva, and Minority Leader Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III. Accordingly, I am also presenting for the adoption of the body the rules of the Senate and the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation as the internal rules of the committee. Is there any motion for the adoption?
Mr. Chair, I
Of
move
the
that we
mentioned
adopt the rules of the Senate and the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation as the internal rules of the committee. I so move, Chair. Mr. Chair.
There is a motion for the adoption of the rules of the Senate and the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation as our committee's internal rules. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is hereby approved. Before we recognize our committee secretary, I just want to give the floor first to Senator Pia. I would like to give a short message.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this will be brief. I passed by to greet the Secretary and his team, and of course to support His Honor, the Chairperson. But I'd also like to mention to the Secretary, I hope you have somebody present in my hearing in the other room, which is why I have to rush there, because I have a hearing on safe pathways and the bicycle lanes. Now, we already passed this last Congress, and it's just really it is a formality because we need to refile the bill and hear it again. This is one of many measures on sustainability that my committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Futures Thinking will be hearing. So I will expect the presence of Dpwh representative there, and of course your support, because I already see in the agenda, Mr. Chairman, you have bills also on sustainability, and you have my full support on that. But I hope, Mr. Secretary, that in the next budget, you will also push for a sustainability officer or committee, because we really need to change the way that we plan out our infrastructure. It has to really be in terms of providing infrastructure also for the future generation. So, and one last point, no, it's very interesting, and Secretary Mark knows about this because he was secretary when I brought this to his attention. You know, we have historic landmarks that by law, if I'm not mistaken, within 50 years, no, any structure, I'm looking for my team, any structure that's 50 years old, you cannot just demolish it. Well, the general rule is you preserve it, no, unless there's proof that it's worth, well, if it's a hazard, etc., etc. So with that in mind, we should really be constructing to ensure that it lasts for many, many generations. Because unless we amend that law, it's meant to withstand more than 50 years or double or triple. Pero kung yung construction naman natin does not allow it to withstand that time, then we're just in for more problems. So I will leave it at that, Mr. Chairman. I give my support, and you can be assured of my presence and interventions always in preparation for better policies on sustainability and with the future in mind. Thank you. And I will now go to my next hearing, so I will leave abruptly.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Pia. Okay, Senator Villar.
Yes, I'd just like to greet my former colleagues. Ganito pala dito sa kabila. Nasanay ako doon. Usually doon ako sa kabila eh. But when I heard you were here, akala ko nandito kayo para batiin ako ng happy birthday. No.
Actually, it's part of it.
Oo nga. So thank you and for being here. And I'm glad that I'll be able to celebrate my birthday with my former colleagues and my new colleague. So I just like to express my deepest admiration for the Dpwh team. I've worked with them for 6 years, and I know how hard they work during the build, and I have the utmost confidence that they will be able to continue that under the build program under the new presidency. So again, I'd like to acknowledge all of you. Thank you for your good work, and I look forward to working with you as a senator in coming up with legislation that will help the Dpwh performance mandate. So thank you very much, and it's good to see you all again.
Okay, thank you, Senator Villar. We just finished our let us now recognize our committee secretary, Ms. Gina De Llomes, to state the jurisdiction of this committee. By the way, we have 4 senators present, so we have a quorum. But anyway, go ahead, Comsec.
Good afternoon, Chairman, honorable members of this committee, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, the jurisdiction of the Committee on Public Works includes all matters relating to planning, construction, maintenance, improvement and repair of public buildings, highways, bridges, roads, ports, airports, harbors and parks, drainage, flood control and protection, and irrigation and water utilities, based on Rule 10, Section 13, Paragraph 29 of the Rules of the Senate.
Thank you, Comsec. And before we open the floor for the briefing, allow me to stress my commitment in ensuring that under this humble representation stewardship, we will be ushering in an era where public infrastructure is for the people in every sense of the word. This organizational meeting is very timely as we are only facing the disastrous effects of the recent earthquake in the Cordillera Administrative Region, CAR, which would entail billions to rehabilitate. But there is also a need to address other public concerns and issues with regard to public infrastructure. Sa pagbangon naman mula sa pandemya, nakita na naman natin ang ating pagdagsa ng ating mga kababayan sa lansangan at ang patuloy na paglago muli ng ating mga pangangailangan. Muli nating nakikita ang kahalagahan ng matatag at atmang infrastruktura. Pero ang sumasalubong naman ay sira-sirang mga kalsada at baha. Just as resilient the Filipino spirit is, So should the foundations of our public infrastructures be as strong, important structure plan cannot be disputed. Isang plano na hindi lamang sisiguraduhin na ayon sa kalidad na tinakda ng batas ang ating mga itatayo, kung hindi ay higit pa na sisiguraduhin sinusulit natin ang buwis ng taong bayan na nagpapadaloy sa mga proyektong ito. Tamang proseso, tamang presyo, na tama ang kalidad sa tamang oras. This is what we have to continuously highlight. Our plans must not sa kanilang mga buhay, dapat rin tayong nagtatrabaho tungo sa makabagong mga paraan na sisiguraduhin magpapahaba palalo ng lifespan ng mga proyekto upang mapakinabangan din ito ng mga susunod na henerasyon. When we speak of public infrastructure, we also know it entails billions of public funds. This is why, as we work hand in hand in providing projects for the people, we have to guarantee that it is always guided by accountability. Projects must be carried through to the finish line, and if not, people responsible for the delays and failures should be held to account. Hindi maaaring magbingi-bingihan sa mga reklamo ng taong bayan, sa mga proyektong hindi natapos at sa mga baha na maaari sanang masolusyonan pero tinutulugan sa mga gusaling sobra-sobra ang presyo. There are only among the many critical issues that this committee will never turn a blind eye to. Hindi tayo magbubulag-bulagan dito. As the Filipino people enjoy the benefits of the previous administration's build promises, may we be inspired to continue on the legacy. At nandito nga ang aking kinakapatid, nakita naman natin yung kanyang performance na dapat pinapalakpakan din, talagang magandang performance. At basta ang importante dito ay ang pagtutulungan ng ating mga kababayan natin sa ating mga naninilbihan, no? And let that be our source of inspiration to keep working hard in building a better and brighter future for all Filipinos. So, you have any message? I mean, is Senator Bongo online? Wala. Okay. So we shall now proceed to the briefing of the Dpwh. Okay. May I ask the committee secretary to acknowledge the resource persons present today?
We acknowledge the following resource persons from the Department of Public Works and Highways, headed by the Secretary of the Department, Secretary Manuel Bonoan. We also have the Undersecretary for Unified Project Management Office and also the Undersecretary for Regional Management Office for Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, Senior Undersecretary Emil Sadain. The Undersecretary for Planning and Public-Private Partnership Service, Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral. The Undersecretary for Technical Services, Undersecretary Maximo Carvajal. The Undersecretary for Regional Operations in CAR, Regions 1, 2, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, Undersecretary Eugenio Pipo Jr. The Undersecretary for Regional Operations in NCR, Regions 3, 4A, 4B, 5, 6, 7, and 8, Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo. The Undersecretary for Special Concerns and also the Chief of Staff of the Secretary, Undersecretary Carlos Mutuk. Assistant Secretary for Support Services, Asek Marichu Palafox. We also acknowledge the presence of Attorney Johnson B. Domingo, the Director of National Building Code of the Philippines, and the Chief for Stakeholders Affairs Division, Director Andro Santiago. We acknowledge the virtual presence of the following Bureau Directors: the Officer in charge of Bureau of Design, Director Edwin Matanggihan; the Bureau of Construction, Director Aristarco Doroy; the Bureau of Maintenance, Director Melvin Navarro; the Bureau Director of Research and Standards, Reynaldo Faustino; the Bureau Director of Quality and Safety, Director Miedmier Malig. That is all, Chairman.
Siguro, para mabilis tayo, I now recognize Secretary Manuel Bonoan for the short briefing. Go ahead, you may start, Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the members of the Committee on Public Works, Senate Committee on Public Works. We're very happy and honored, Your Honor, to be invited for this briefing this afternoon. To start with, Mr. Chairman, let me start by saying that to put things in proper perspective, I think I would have to state that the Dpwh is an infrastructure principal agency, infrastructure agency of government. It is mandated to undertake the planning of infrastructure such as national roads and bridges, flood control, water resources projects, and other public works, and also the design, construction, maintenance of national roads and bridges, and major flood control systems all over the country. Today, well, Mr. Chairman, this is my second time to be in the Department of Public Works and Highways, having served for many, many years beforehand. And I'm very happy to be at the helm of the department once again with a team that was cohesive and working together, led by the former Secretary of Public Works and Highways, now Senator Mark Villar po.
Actually, panahon pa ng tatay ko, nandyan ka na, no? So, you may proceed, Secretary. Totoo, that's true. Yeah, they were together. Yeah.
So, may I continue, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Well,
You proceed, Secretary.
Well, on the first item, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to state that the Dpwh is now undertaking several priority infrastructure projects, and in the administration of this administration of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. The priorities of infrastructure projects would start with the continuation of the build projects. Again, this was started with my predecessor, former Secretary Mark Villar, and the instruction is actually to finish all the ongoing priority projects in the pipeline under the build program, to finish them at the earliest possible time, so that these projects will become usable for particularly in support to the economic recovery of government at this point in time. He made particular instructions that, especially on bridges that have been started for quite some time, he wants them to be completed on the shortest possible time. We have to address actually the traffic bottlenecks leading to interregional connections, growth, and urban centers and other growth centers, Mr. Chairman. We have to continue with the convergence programs of government in correlation with other government agencies, particularly in support to the food production program of government this time in the areas of agriculture, tourism, interconnectivity with other transport modes, support to small and medium enterprises, and as well as the other infrastructure needs in the local government units, Mr. Chairman. So, so this is what we're going to start at this point in time.
Would like to recognize Senator Bronco. Senator, you may proceed, Secretary.
Well, these are the priority programs that we are online, Mr. Chairman, and this will continue on. I think under this present administration now, the president has given the mandate that the medium-term development plan of the country is now being consolidated and will be completed by the end of the year. So we are now in the process of preparing it together with the National Economic Development Authority, Mr. Chairman.
As you mentioned, no, maybe my Tukaya would like to say something for your opening statement. Senator Bongo is recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Singit lang po ako, nagpe-preside ako sa kabila.
I know.
Na siraan nagkaroon ng glitches yung WebEx. Good day, Mr. Chair, my distinguished colleagues, and our respected resource persons. The Committee on Public Works plays a vital role in ensuring that all public infrastructures are safe, resilient, and in accordance with the building standards provided by law. The previous administration, lahat po halos kayo nandito ay part of it under the leadership of former President Duterte, prioritized the creation of important public infrastructures under the Build program. This paved the way towards golden age infrastructures. Through the Build program, we were able to build bridges, roads, railroads, and even airports to make our archipelagic country more connected, literally. Salamat kay Senator Mark also, my colleague na po ngayon. These infrastructures help various sectors in the country in our overall recovery from the pandemic. Kaya naman po, Mr. Chair, it is with great joy that President Marcos promised to continue projects under the Build program. Patunay lamang po ito kung gaano kaimportante ang mga infrastructure projects na ito sa pagbangon muli ng ating bansa. Mr. Chair, hindi po lingid sa kaalaman ng bawat isa sa atin that we are located along the typhoon belt in the Pacific. Kaya naman po, we are visited by at least 20 typhoons every year, 5 of which are usually very destructive. Ako po ay umiikot talaga sa mga bagyo, no? Idagdag po natin dito that we are situated in the Pacific Ring of Fire, which makes us vulnerable sa mga lindol at volcanic eruptions. Mr. Chair, my distinguished colleagues, palagi ko pong sinasabi na a lost life is a lost life forever. And it is true. Napakalaki po ng gampanin natin sa committee ito sa ating mga kababayan na protektahan sa panganib na maaaring idulot ng mga natural calamities na ito. Resilient public infrastructure is also a representation of a resilient government. Being part of all matters concerning public works mula sa planning, construction, hanggang sa maintenance, improvement, and repair of public buildings, highways, bridges, roads, ports, airports, harbors, and parks, maging sa drainage, flood control and protection, and irrigation and water utilities. We are a step closer to our vision of a resilient government and literally a stronger nation. Nais ko pong magpasalamat sa ating chairman, Senator Bong Revilla, at sa lahat ng dumalo sa meeting na ito, Secretary, lahat ng mga USECs, ASECs. Salamat po sa inyong lahat for taking the initiative to continue our pursuit of more resilient and safer public infrastructures. Magandang umaga po. Magandang araw. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Senator Bongo. You mentioned kanina, Secretary, about the build projects ng gobyerno, no? Ano-ano tong ngayong pagtutuunan ng pansin, panahon at pondo ng DPWH sa ilalim ng Marcos administration?
As I said, Mr. Chairman, I think, well, one of the priority programs is to continue with the ongoing build projects, which we will make a little presentation in no time. But I think one of the focus of this administration is to address, actually, along national roads, is to address traffic congestion problems of interregional connections. So that we can provide unimpeded travel from one region to another, unimpeded, safe, and efficient travel from one region to another. Because I think right now, Mr. Chairman, there are many congested areas along the main thoroughfares connecting regions right now. In fact, I might as well mention that the cost of transporting goods in the Philippines is one of the highest in Southeast Asia. This is about 480 pesos per ton kilometer at this time because of traffic congestion problems. Now, this is comparatively to other countries in Southeast Asia, which is only about 250 pesos per ton kilometer. So I think if we are able to reduce this, Mr. Chairman, I think it would have a big impact to reducing the cost of goods and services.
Yes. Can you give us a top 10 flagship projects of this government? Yung nasimula ng panahon ni dating Pangulong Duterte at itutuloy ngayon ni Pangulong Marcos. Can you give us a top 10 flagship projects? Go ahead, USEC Secretary.
I will turn it over to Undersecretary Sadain, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead. USEC Sadain, you are recognized.
Good afternoon po, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of this committee. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Mr. Chair, actually, we are implementing around 40 flagship projects. That was actually started... 40, Mr. Chair. Okay. So it goes through with 30 ODA-funded projects and several locally funded and PPP projects. Mr. Chair, maybe I can show some slides.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I just scroll with this. The program itself, I think we are talking here of two transition of government from President Duterte to President Marcos Jr. because it ensures a better continuity from Sec Mark Villar, now a senator, and the indefatigable senior USEC before, now a secretary of Dpwh, Secretary Manny Bonoan. So the 40 flagship projects here, Mr. Chair, actually redound from the 40 share component of Dpwh, which aim to accelerate infrastructure development, increase the productive capacity of the economy, generate more jobs, and strengthen the investment climate of the country that leads towards an inclusive and progressive economic growth. So as President Marcos Jr. has declared, if I may quote, I want to build on success that is already happening. It's actually a continuing effort, Mr. Chair. Although as mentioned by Secretary Bonoan, there are still more flagship projects that has to be conceptualized and implemented under this term, which basically focus on agricultural development and food productions. No? So next slide, please. We have the 40, next slide, please. We have the 44 public flagship projects. 30 of those are ODA-funded projects. 1 project is under the technical services, 7 projects under regional operations, 4 under the public-private partnership, and 2 a mixed financing of ODA, PPP, and GAA. Next slide. There are 30 of these, as you could see here, from GOP to various lending institutions. They're actually having their own shares on the financing. Next slide. We have the long list here, Mr. Chair. About 40 of those, 30 of those projects are in the pipelines of ODA funded project. Next slide. Next slide. The first project that was completed, Mr. Chair, was actually in 2017, a flood control project for Pasek Marikina River Channel Improvement Project Phase 3. This goes through up to 3 years of implementation, which redound to full completions in December 2017. Next slide. The flood risk management project for Cagayan River, Taguluan River, and Imus River, these are all completed projects in 2022, early March. And this include, Mr. Chair, the Imus River subproject retarding basin and the Paco retarding basin, the Cagayan River flood control projects, and the Taguluan River projects. Next slide. Another project is the Integrated Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Change Adoption project, which is actually located in the delta areas of Pampanga and Bulacan. So this is also due for completion, Mr. Chair, by 2022 December of this year. No, this is already about 86% completed. This will actually reduce the flooding in the delta areas in the boundary of Bulacan and Pampanga. Next slide is the flood risk management project for Cagayan de Oro River. We call it PRIMCIDOR, which is also a project for completion by August 2023. As we have recorded the Sendong typhoon that hit actually Cagayan de Oro City and its neighboring provinces. Next slide is the Pasig Marikina Phase 5. This is also soon for completion at 92% already. Another is the Cavite Industrial Area Flood Control Project, which is already had taken of implementations, and full completions of this will be in March 2026. Next slide. The Ambal Simoy, next slide. The Ambal
Why
Simoy flood
2026? Ang tagal.
Yeah, the design fair started in 2022. There were several studies there that were
Shorter
yes, sir.
pa.
We will work on that, sir, to
Okay,
shorten
proceed.
the implementation.
Good.
The Ambal Simoy Flood Control Project, this is still initial for negotiations between the China Exim Bank and the DOF. Next slide. The Pasig Marikina Phase 4, this is already bidded out and implementations has already been started. The completion of this is in 2028. There's a huge structure here, Mr. Chair, which is we call it the Mangahan Control Gate structures that regulate the flood flow coming down from Marikina River all the way to Pasig River at 500 cubic meter per second. And contrary to non-structures before, the flood control can go up to 1,900 cubic meter per second. So regulated po siya. Next slide is the Metro Manila Flood Control Management Project funded by World Bank. This involved the rehabilitations of 36 pumping stations and 20 new pumping stations all over Metro Manila. So this is one of the answer, Mr. Chair, to the perennial flooding. Once we can also settle the issues on local drainage by the city government, I think there's no way that flooding can still occur, since this will actually decongest most of the pumping stations that pump up water to Pasig River from the mainland area. Next slide is the Bonifacio Global City, which was already completed during PRD's time, and is also being open to traffic long before. Next slide is the Binondo Intramuros Bridge, one of the iconic bridges that were also constructed along Pasig River. This was also completed in April 2022. Next slide is Central Pantaleon Bridge, completed also in September 2021. The support for reconstructions of, next slide, of Marawi City after siege in 2017. We are actually completed the JICA component of this project, and the other funding from JICA loan are actually at 30% accomplishment already. Next slide. The Samar Pacific Coastal Road project in Region 8. This is already open to traffic, about 80% of this, while completing the remaining 1.2 kilometer stretch and 2 bridges towards Palapag by the end of December this year. Another project is the Arterial Road Bypass project, which is also ongoing, and full completions will be in September 2023. Another high-impact project, Mr. Chair, is the Davao City Bypass Construction Project. This is actually a route, the first tunnel we had actually at 2.1 kilometers that connect Digos to Panabo, and is scheduled for completion in November 2025. Mahaba po. Then another project po is Improving Growth Corridor in Mindanao. This is about a total of 230 kilometers. We call it the missing link under Zamboanga Peninsula, but these projects also catch up to the area of Tawi-Tawi and Basilan as far as the bridges constructions are concerned. Another bridge here, Mr. Chair, one of the iconic one also, is the Panglao Bay Bridge project funded by Korean. This is about 3.6 kilometers long that connect Tubod to Tangub City. And this is actually, Mr. Chair, due for completion by December 2023. Another project here, Mr. Chair, which is actually in the procurement stage, are two bridges, the Guadalupe Bridge and Lambingan Bridge in Metro Manila Priority Bridges Seismic Improvement Project. So we are actually in the progress also of procuring, and target for completion will be in October 2025. Another project for Marawi, part of the Marawi Seas rehabilitation, is the ADB-funded project that constitute 23 kilometer stretch of new road network within the area of Marawi City. 3 bridges, Mr. Chair, are also scheduled, next slide, for constructions this year, before end of this year. These are actually the 3 bridges for Pasig River, while the other 3 bridges also are for Marikina River. Next slide. The Samal Island Davao City Connector project, Mr. Chair, this is actually the first and only projects we had so far with China Exim Bank, but it went through a very rigorous negotiation on a very low interest rate as is negotiated by DOF with the China Exim Bank. So this is a design and build contract, and the design is already in progress, and civil works may commence by early next year also. Completions will be in 2027. Another project for BARM, this is a road network development project in conflict affected areas. This is also ongoing project, Mr. Chair, which address the missing gap in that vicinity connecting Mindanao and Lanao Sur. The completions of this will be in June 2026. Another bridges here, Mr. Chair, is the Metro Manila bridges. As mentioned earlier, the ADB projects in Marikina River. This is also due for start by next year, no, once completions of the procurement by third quarter of this year. Another project here, Mr. Chair, this is Cebu Mactan Bridge and Post Coastal Road Construction Project. Detailed design is already ongoing, and by next year, we're going to start also the civil works. The project will be, is actually targeted for completions in 2029. Another big ticket and iconic project here, Mr. Chair, is the Panay Guimaras Negros Island, 32-kilometer stretch funded by Korean Exim Bank of the detailed design. The project will increase the economic potentials of the area from Iloilo, Guimaras, all the way to Negros Island. The project is actually targeted for civil works constructions from covering year 2024 to 2029. Another project here is the Bataan Cavite. Next slide, please. Interlink Bridge. This is actually at 50% detailed designs already completed. By March next year, we'll be going to complete the full detailed design of this another 32 kilometers iconic bridge that connect Naik Cavite, passing Corregidor, all the way to Maribeles, Bataan. Next slide, please. Iconic bridges projects for socio-economic development. This is UK-assisted projects, 3 bridges across Cagayan River. So this is also one project that is under continuously negotiated by the DOF for UK financing. Next slide. Another project is the Panglao Tagbilaran City Offshore project. This is actually a grant assistance from China Exim Bank. So this is actually being conducted, its detailed design, and by next year, the civil works will follow thereafter. Another project is the Davao City Expressway Project Phase 1. This is also under review by the NEDA ICC Board in this year for revisiting back of the previous FS done in last year. Next slide, please. The Laguna Lakeshore Road Network Project by ADB also. This is already in progress of its detailed design, and constructions will follow also by next year. Full completions of this project will be in 2027. One project which we had packaged for technical services under the Bureau of Maintenance is the Philippine Seismic Risk Reduction and Resiliency Project that will address some retrofitting works on major damages to schools and hospitals in case, Mr. Chair, some big earthquake. Huwag naman maneda ICC. there's already the original proponent status being worked through.
This is which part of Cavite? What, ano to?
Cavite, Tagaytay, Batangas po, sir.
Saan ang labas na?
From Nasugbu, sir, all the way
Nasugbu.
to link to Parex Expressway. Oh,
Parallel to Tagaytay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay. Sige, proceed.
So next slide, please. On the locally projects, Mr. Chair, the regional operations, we have here about 7 projects. I just have to mention Surala, Tibuli, San Jose Road, General Santos City, Sindangan, Bayog, Lakewood Road, Sabanga del Norte, Sabanga del Sur, Boracay, Cinco Provincial Road, Cagayan de Oro Costa Road, Bacolod Negros Occidental Economic Highway, Kamsur Speed Highway Project, Pasacao Balatan Tourism, Coastal Highways. All of these are under construction, Mr. Chair, for completion in the next 2 years. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you po.
Okay. So, you would like to, okay. And I recognize Senator Win.
I just have a few quick questions.
Sure.
I was looking at the PPP projects. What happened to the Pasek River Expressway project? Because that was quite in the news during the last few months. I'm just curious how come it's not in the list anymore. Matutuloy ba siya?
This is the Parex Expressway, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor. I think there are, at this point in time, I think there are environmental issues that are being addressed for the time being, and while the proponent of the project is in the process of preparations at this time, I think the issue on environmental issues is still pending until being resolved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a timetable for the resolution? I don't think that, honestly, I've been following that story. It's not easy to resolve. No? Because the resolution there is to not to build the highway. So is there, number one, what do you see as a resolution, Mr. Secretary? And then number two, when do you see a resolution to that situation?
As far as the environmental issues are concerned, Mr. Chairman, I think all the other agencies that are involved are now consolidating their positions on the matter. And as far as I know, I think as soon as these are resolved, I would not dare to put up a timetable at this time, Mr. Chairman. But the proponent has assured us that they would be ready actually to implement anytime soon. Yes.
With the indulgence of the chairman, I have 2 more questions. The other one is the policy on PPP, Mr. Chair. I also saw in the presentation out of the many projects, there are only 4 PPP projects, and would like to just seek clarification on the policy on PPP. Will that be pursued under this administration? Will that be modified? There's so many variants of PPPs. Just to give us some idea and some direction on what the new administration is embarking on insofar as PPP is concerned.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, I failed really to mention that actually one of the areas that this administration will pursue is actually to continue with the public-private partnership. In fact, actually, to be more aggressive, if you like, so that in view of the fiscal constraints that we are experiencing now in the country, I think the President wants also to pursue more aggressively public-private partnership, particularly in addressing interregional connections and traffic congestion problems in many growth centers all over the country, Mr. Chairman.
That include, Secretary, unsolicited proposals? Because I know that's also one of the bone of contention, no? Unsolicited proposals. When you say aggressive, will that include unsolicited proposals?
There are two school of thoughts, actually, Mr. Chairman, if I may offer a advance information that the preference would be only for solicited proposals at this time, Mr. Chairman, so that we can, it should coincide with development priorities at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor.
Speaking of environmental issues, ano-ano itong mga issue na ito about itong environmental issues na nakakapag-delay?
As far as the Parex, if I recall, Mr. Chairman, as far as the Pasig River Expressway project is concerned, there are issues with regard to historical buildings that may be affected, the issue of polluting in the Pasig River, the conditions of ano ba to? The depth of Pasig River may be compromised and things like this, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, yung lahat ng present yung mga flagship projects, no, yung 40, no, flagship projects of the government, talagang nakamamangha, no. Timetable, are we going to hit the target date? May mga delays. Anong ano nyo, pondo about yung mga problema natin dyan sa mga, what do you call this, right of way? Yeah, yung mga ganon, Secretary.
Yes, of course, Mr. Chairman. I think while we have actually outlined all 40 of these projects, I think even the President has mentioned that we have to revisit the priorities actually of all the projects in the pipelines. And he would like to put priorities on projects that would immediately contribute to economic recovery at this time. And of course, we are looking at the projects that perhaps we can implement within the term of the President, Mr. Chairman, to be realistic about it. I think to be realistic about it, we'll be looking at the priorities of many of these projects that are being mentioned, so that we will put focus on what this administration can complete within 6 years.
Okay. Senator Villar, you're recognized.
Yes, just a quick, moving on from what Senator Win was mentioning regarding the PPPs. Since the inclination of the department is more towards solicited proposals, what is the, does that necessarily mean that the government is open to subsidizing projects now? Subsidizing PPP projects now?
I think we will continue with the same policy, Your Honor, with regard to, let's say, as far as the Department of Public Works and Highways is concerned. I think most of the PPP projects that are expressways in nature, it will still be the Department of Public Works and Highways to continue for the acquisition of the necessary right of way and providing technical assistance actually to the Toll Regulatory Board for that matter.
But you'll still be accepting, will you still be accepting unsolicited proposals?
I think there is an inclination, Mr. Chairman, because I think in order to put focus on the development priorities of government, it will be more on the solicited proposals. That means the solicited proposals are already those that are being identified by the government that should be put forward to the private sector, Your Honor.
Okay, Secretary, usaping flood control, ano, as you mentioned naman kanina, and, may mga mababang lugar tayo, no, napipirwisyo ng baha, especially now, it's a rainy season, no. Yung ating mga catch basin areas, mga areas like NCR, Kamanaba, Parañaque, Mandaluyong, Quezon City, ito, ilang konting ulan lang talagang baha na. Ngayon, may finger pointing na nangyayari sa pagbabaha ngayon sa Metro Manila. Kasalanan daw ng DPWH. I understand that under the charter of the MMDA shall be the authority responsible for flood control in Metro Manila. Is that correct? At ano naman po ang papel ng DPWH? O paano ba kayo nagtutulungan?
Mr. Chairman, Your Honors, that's correct, Mr. Chairman, that the delineation on addressing the flooding problems in Metro Manila is specifically being carried out by the Metropolitan Development Authority. Let me just point out, Mr. Chairman, that having said that, the Department of Public Works and Highways continue to provide support, what we have mentioned, that we are now undertaking the Pasig Marikina flood control program. In other words, technically, Mr. Chairman, we are trying to enhance the capacity of the Pasig River, the Pasig Marikina River, in order the flood waters coming from the catchment areas in the Sierra Madre Mountains will be able to convey the flood waters down to Manila Bay. So we have, I think we have raised the embankments actually in order that the capacity of Pasig Marikina enhanced. And then at the same time, it has been mentioned that we are now rehabilitating the 30 pumping stations, to increase their capacities. Now,
Yung flood control, ito yung...
yes, for them to be able. The main issue is actually in the internal drainage of Metro Manila, which is actually now under the Metropolitan Development Authority and the local government units. How to convey the runoff water inside Metro Manila to the pumping stations is the one that is seems to be the more important thing to be able to do at this point in time, Mr. Chairman.
Like in Kamanaba, I heard, nung bumisita ako last election dyan, they were complaining bumabaha ulit in their areas. Konting ulan lang o high tide lang, baha na naman. So what happened doon sa kanilang mga floodgates? Minsan daw yung maintenance, hindi masyado na maintain daw yun. So you have to look into it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think this is part of the program that we are now going to implement actually the rehabilitation of the floodgates and the pumping stations all over Metro Manila, Mr. Chairman.
So
Under the
ito
World
lang,
Bank
bago pa
system.
lang yan? Bago nyo pa lang lalagyan ng pondo yan? Or may existing na ongoing?
Meron na pong existing program under the World Bank, but it is being carried out in phases lang po.
Okay. Just like in Bacoor.
Yes.
Every year na lang, palagi na kino-complain yung baha. Talagang lumulubog doon sa amin sa Bacoor. Secretary, Las Piñas kami. Kumbaga sabihin, nandun si Secretary, the former Secretary, now the Senator. Ako, taga-Ronde sa Bacoor, Cavite. Kami yung nilulubog doon, Las Piñas, Bacoor. Kami yung so siguro naman tulungan nyo na kami para ma-resolve na natin yung baha dyan. No? I think kailangan din siguro natin ng floodgate or para pumping station din, just like what you did in Kamanaba. Dahil talagang catch basin ang Bacoor. Mababa talaga yan. So we really need to fast track this project. Meron na ba tayong study dyan na ginawa regarding that? Dahil ang tagal na natin kinocomplain dito, pabalik-balik tayo dito.
My information is meron na raw ginawa, Mr. Chairman, but hindi pa napupunduhan ko yata.
Oh, yun ang So, ba't hindi ponduhan? So, ngayon, it's in your hand, Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I think there are several catch basin projects in at the DPWH. I remember there's I think the plan was yung mga catch basins since and there was also yung river, yung widening. Isang option din yan
Yeah,
sa Bacoor. But I think they're still, like you said, they're still studying it also.
Yeah, katulad doon sa Imus, di ba? May meron kayong Ano as you mentioned kanina, yung subframe, di ba? Yung flood risk management project like in Cagayan, Tagoloan, sa Imus Rivers. You mentioned kanina, matatapos na to o tapos na? Ang bilis mo kasi nagsalita, so hindi kita masyadong
Mr. Chair, for the backward returning basin, that's about 9 hectares of
9
returning
hectares.
basin. Tapos na po ito noong 2022 March na pasinayan na po. Then the Imus returning basin, 35 hectares also wider. Tapos na rin siya.
Tapos na.
Opo.
So yung baha coming from the upland area,
Yes,
diretso na yun doon. Hindi na diretso kagad sa Bacoor.
Oh, that's why, sir, yung Bacoor River Basin flood control is really also a must because there's about 1.4 kilometers floodway that has to be built from the coastal all the way to the upper sections. Yung nandun sa Bacoor River can only address 20% of the flood volume coming down to Bacoor River.
Kasi minsan high tide lang, bumaba na kami doon.
Oo,
So,
nag-stuck
nasisisi kami.
So the need to construct the floodway po for Bacoor at 1.4 kilometers plus the widening,
How much will it cost?
2 billion pesos po.
2 billion. So, Secretary, 2 billion daw. So, kaya mo na yan.
I will close it right away, sir.
Yusek Cabral. So, di ba? Pagtulong-tulungan natin yan.
Noted,
Dahil paulit-ulit,
Mr.
pag
Chairman.
nagtatawa na kami ng mga kabitenyo rito, di ba? Ang dami namin senador na kabitenyo. Meron pa tayong kapitbahay taga Las Piñas, and we cannot even solve the problem. So yeah, I would like to recognize Senator JB Ercito. Yes, my buddy. He would like to say something. May ganun ka bang ano? So, yun. Ano pa ba?
Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes.
just like also to inform the committee that aside from Metro Manila flood control projects, we are also undertaking addressing the flooding problems in 18 major river basins all over the country.
All over, yeah. Mm-mm.
And to also address some of the flooding problems all over. Yeah.
That's right. Mm-mm. Yeah, yun nga, as I said, yeah, kailangan we should focus on that, no? Kasi laking epekto eh. And okay, regarding MBUC, Secretary, noong 2019 pinirma ni President Duterte yung Republic Act 11239, which abolished the road board and provided for the disposition of the motor vehicles users charge. 3 years after it was signed, no? Will you please inform this committee on the status of the implementation of this law?
Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee, upon the amendment of the original MVUC law, which you said Republic Act 1139, the proceeds of the motor vehicle user charge fund has now been integrated into the general fund, and it is already part of the General Appropriations Act. So, in other words, it is no longer a separate fund in itself that would have actually catered for the purposely for the addressing problems in the transport sector, Mr. Chairman. So, as of now, I think there are aside from specific programs to enhance mobility and efficiency and safety according to motorists, actually, because these are directly the fund is coming directly from the motorists themselves, actually. So there are also items that can already be included under this fund, as I know, Mr. Chairman.
And the funds of MBUC is now being included doon sa General Appropriation Act.
That's
GAA
correct,
na.
Mr. Chairman.
It's not only DPWH discretion kung ano yung pipiliin yung project or still sa DPWH pa rin.
It is, I believe it is still lodged in the DPWH budget, Mr. Chairman, but the use of it is not going to be exclusively for the original intent of MBUC at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good question. If I can just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that just to clarify, because I noticed there's a lot of confusion regarding the MVUC. Whereas before the MVUC was a fund separate from the budget ceiling of the DPWH. Now it's incorporated in the budget ceiling of the DPWH, and the funds there's no road. The funds don't go directly to the road board. It goes directly to the National Treasury, which in turn is mixed in with all the other revenue sources of government. So what we remember, what we knew before as the MVUC no longer exists in that form. It is now a part of the submitted NEP. So therefore, it is also part of the ceiling of the DPWH, not previously where it was over and above the ceiling of DPWH.
That is not really the intent of the law, the MBUC law. Can you enlighten us?
The original law.
The original law is anong intent po nito?
The original law at the time, Mr. Chairman, is intended for, there is a allocation for several items like, I think 70% of that, 80% of that was for road maintenance, to augment road maintenance for periodic, for national roads. And then there is also an allocation for the maintenance of local roads, provincial and city roads. There was also an allocation for pollution control, emission control for motor vehicles. And there is also a portion of that fund allocated for road safety, Mr. Chairman. I believe these are the main components of that law.
Okay. So, maganda yan. At least napag-usapan natin yan. So, pwede natin pag-aralan yan. And then, we'll see. So, Public Works Act. No, my father is the author of the 1995 Public Works Act. So, ito, in 1994 pala to, no? In 1994, Republic Act 8150 or the Public Works and Highways Infrastructure Program Act of 1995 was enacted into law, no? Ito yung sa tatay ko yung brainchild nito, no? I know for a fact that you worked with my dad at that time, Secretary. Maaari bang bigyan nyo kami ng kapiraso lang na kwento na naging benepisyo nito sa bayan?
Well, yung Public Works Act, Republic Act 8150, Mr. Chairman, has provided, particularly with the Department of Public Works and Highways, policies to increase efficiency in the implementation of projects in the department. It has provided guidance and guidelines on procurement authorities of offices, particularly in implementing projects under the Department of Public Works and Highways. It was a good policy, actually. It has provided good policies, actually, for implementation of programs and projects, Mr. Chairman. And if we would have to continue with it, I think even at this point in time, the policies that were incorporated in that law are still being practiced by this department. And it has been institutionalized, actually, Mr. Chairman.
I understand that our counterpart in the lower house, nag-file din sila ng public.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we had been informed that there a Public Works Act entitled 30 years. Anto? 30 years road infrastructure program has been filed at the lower house by
30 years program. Tagal.
by two of the congressmen who had been formerly undersecretaries of the department, Mr. Chairman, Congressman Salvador Plato and Congressman Romy Momo.
Sige, kausapin na lang natin sila. Itong 30 years Public Works Act plan na to, no? Okay, just to fast track, no? Regarding dito sa, Mandana's ruling, in relation to Mandana's ruling on devolution, ang concern natin dito yung epekto niya, no, sa ating public infrastructure. Ano po ang ina-expect ng ang expected timetable ng DPWH patungkol sa transition plan on devolution?
Well, the devolution plan, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, will take until 2024, I believe. This is the devolving all local infrastructures to the local government units, Mr. Chairman. But having said that, because this is having said that, this is in accordance with the Executive Order 158 that was issued by then President Duterte, and consequently there was a circular DBM circular guidelines in the preparation of the 2023 budget at this point in time. Having said that, at any rate, Mr. Chairman, I think I may as well give information that the President himself is very concerned about the Mandana's law at this point in time. For one thing, I think he was saying in the cabinet that it may not be a practical way to implement it at this time because of the scarce resources of government, especially the contribution of the IRA to the local government units, which is low because of the effect of the pandemic period. So the advice to us is actually to continue with the support to the local government, to local infrastructure priorities, particularly to support agricultural production, tourism, in the convergence program, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, kung i-absorb na to ng LGU, kakayanin po ba ito? Ano po yung matitira sa DPWH na kapag full implemented na itong Mandana's ruling?
Well, marami naman pipelines, Mr. Chairman, kaya lang. But I think the support to the local government units, especially on the mga convergence programs, will have really to continue.
Secretary, I just want again clarification. Under the Mandana's ruling, that will be implemented this year, correct? Starting this year, and the division there is the national roads will remain with DPWH. All the local roads will now be part of the local government. Tama po ba?
Yes.
Ganun ba yung division niya? Okay.
All local infrastructure will now be devolved to the local government units, Mr. Chairman.
And I think maybe for cities, urban areas, that is feasible, but for municipalities, even component cities in the provinces, they will have a very difficult time financing their local roads. No, I think that should be something that should be looked at. Because makikita naman ho natin, no, not the municipalities are not even though you add 30%, Mandanas basically adds 30%. It's not enough, no? It's not enough. So, like to probably put that on the table just for the department to look at, no?
Especially the fourth, fifth class municipalities, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Sir, meron
Okay,
din provisions
yeah.
sa Local Government Code EO 138 na kapag hindi kaya ng lower level of government na yung kanilang infrastructure requirements, then higher national government can support them if the resources are inadequate. So meron pong ganun. That's why we formed the convergence. Ito po yung mga inter-jurisdictional, meaning, the road will traverse multi regions or multi provinces or multi areas na kailangan po holistic yung planning. Bridges, medyo complicated po yan sa local LGU. So that is where DPWH can come in and support them.
Thank you.
Senator
Yes,
Villar.
thank you. You read my mind, you said, Kathy. I was gonna ask you about the convergence program. My only question is, Mr. Chairman, will you continue with all of the convergence programs in the DPWH? Will it still be will it continue to be a policy of the DPWH to pursue these convergence programs, or will any of them be stopped? Or
I think the policy, Your Honor, is actually just to continue with the convergence programs. Actually, even the President has actually emphasized for the need of the convergence programs, particularly sinabi ko nga, in support to support food security program of government and tourism, yung support to small and medium
Zones,
sites of small and medium site ecozones, and yung mga interlinkages with other transport modes, airports, railroads, and
you can mention your
yung TICAS, tuloy pa, okay, tuloy pa rin.
some program for TICA.
TICAS is continuing as well at this point in time. The President also has actually instructed us to work closely with the Department of Agriculture and the National Irrigation Administration to evolve a master plan for farm-to-market roads in the production areas of the irrigations.
Will the DPWH be implementing the NIA projects, and is that something that the department is looking into, or not?
Yes, Your Honor. We are looking into the continuation of the arrangement that the department will continue to implement farm-to-market roads with the National Irrigation Administration and the Department of Agriculture.
What about, Secretary, about the general policy on creation of the new engineering districts?
Mr. Chairman, we have some criteria to abide in the creation of new engineering districts. That is particularly in the extent of the national roads within the area, maintainable roads in the area, and that is the main criteria by which we can create new engineering districts, Mr. Chairman.
With your permission, Chairman, I'll jump to another topic. And
Go ahead.
I think this might be a little too premature, but nevertheless, I want to ask the good secretary. Earlier, I saw the projects of the Build, and no doubt those are the Villar, Duterte, Build projects. Meron na bang Bunoan, Marcos, Build projects for the next 6 years? No, I just want to get some preview on things to come, because Build is such an exciting project, and of course we give credit to Senator Mark for pushing all those projects to reality, to fruition. But in the next 6 years, meron na ba ho tayong makikitang new projects coming in online from the brainchild of the DPWH and also from the administration?
Uh, Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as I mentioned, sir, earlier, that we are now in the process of formulating the medium-term development plan, and this will be towards the end of the year. Well, I think we will be focusing on, let's say, support to food production security, food security, tourism, and the interconnectivity with other modes of transport, and particularly addressing the bottlenecks along the interregional connections. One thing that is floating is actually to revisit actually the, if you like, Mr. Chairman, the Daang Maharlika, which is the backbone of the national roads from Cagayan all the way to Mindanao, which is that was built a long time ago during the time of the father of the president, and it has already outlived its original design because it has because of economic development in many of the communities or municipalities it is traversing. So what we would like to see is to see the this backbone of the national highway from Cagayan to Mindanao to have a seamless, unimpeded travel all over the country, sort of, if you like, a freeway, a freeway in a freeway, hopefully, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Archito.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Secretary, and the rest of the DPWH officials. I have filed Senate Bill number 158, no, which mandates the formulation of a comprehensive master plan for infrastructure development. The intention is really to that whoever sits as president, we will have a blueprint that any administration would follow. Kasi po, pag big ticket items, tauna ng ano niyan eh, di ba? Dapat ang planning. Originally, it was really meant for transportation, for railways and others, but we have included already also other infrastructures, no, that needs to be in the pipeline in the next 50 to 100 years. Doon po sa tanong ko lang po tungkol doon sa water projects natin, yung Kaliwa Dam and others, that's DPWH is a co-implementer of this project, am I correct po? Or MWSS and DP? And I think DP rin pong.
Actually po yung we only provide access roads to the area po, but not the entire project itself.
But ang ano ko lang siguro dito, Mr. Secretary, would you be will the DPWH support my bill on comprehensive master plan to include of course the DP project, the big ticket items especially of the department in the comprehensive master plan?
Yes, of course, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman. I think once before, I think we have had actually a Public Works Act long time ago. You know, this was a Public Works Act that has actually included all major public works for some time.
Well, that's good. Thank you very much, Secretary, and the rest of the DP officials for the support. Kasi problema, Mr. Chairman, probably because of our political system, most of the presidents or the administrations are concerned with the 6-year legacy that they can leave behind. But when we talk about big ticket items like major infrastructure, talagang dapat yan ay 35, 50, even 100 years ang planning. So, Mr. Chairman, yun lang po, I look forward to hearing from DPWH officials more as we discuss this bill later on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Senator Archito. Punta lang tayo dito sa Cordillera earthquake, no? Can you give us an update regarding this, yung mga naapektuhan ng lindol in Abra, in Ilocos, no, Ilocos region. Can you give us an update on this? Gaano kalaki po yung damage dito? Ano po ang naging aksyon na ng DPWH about this? Kasi mag-face-to-face na. Yung mga paaralan ba, pwede bang pasukan ng mga bata yon o saan ba natin lilipat sila? So, can you give us an update on this, Secretary?
Yes, well, Mr. Chairman, right after the earthquake, I think the President has instructed me to mobilize actually rescue and operations in the Cordilleras and particularly Region 1 and the Cordillera Administrative Region, particularly in Abra. So right after the earthquake, yeah, that is what we did actually. And we mobilized our crews actually, particularly to clearing all the debris that have affected yung national roads. Going to Abra particularly, and the main roads in Cordilleras, roads leading to Baguio and so forth and so on. So here, Mr. Chairman, I think the national roads, there were 29 national roads that were close to traffic at the time. So 22 in CAR and 7 in Region 1. But most of these roads now, most of the national roads have been cleared. Actually, even partially or totally cleared, Mr. Chairman. I understand the only national road that is now under clearing operations even at this time, although it was also partially possible now, is actually the Halsema Highway in the section of Mount Data, where a large mountain slope, malaki po yung bumagsak. So it's still ongoing yung clearing, but I think it's now partially possible, Mr. Chairman. All the national roads in Cordillera and Region 1 have already been cleared.
Okay, I understand. Yung about the, yung sa mga buildings na kumulaps doon, ano pong status doon, Mr. Secretary? Namomonitor ba ng ating mga opisyal ng DPWH regarding the building permit? Meron akong narinig na parang substandard yung ibang pagkakagawa ng mga buildings.
Right, we also undertook yung rapid assessment, Mr. Chairman, on some of the buildings in the earthquake-affected areas. We found out that there were several buildings that have structural deficiencies that have resulted, no? Ilan yung natin, Secretary Carbal? Can you use the microphone to give an update on?
Yusek Carvalho, you are recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, sa mga government sa CAR, mayroon tayong mga naapektuhan mga government hospitals. Nakapag-assess po tayo ng 20. Isa po doon ay hindi natin sa ngayon na hindi pa pwedeng gamitin.
20 government hospitals.
Yan po, na-assess po yun pong in-assess natin. Pero isa lang po yung hindi pwedeng gamitin.
Okay.
Tapos po yung sa public school buildings, nag-assess po tayo ng 407. Yung 71, limited po ang pwedeng paggamit. Yung pong 51, hindi po pwedeng gamitin pa.
Dami nun.
Opo.
Okay.
Yung other public buildings po, 406 po yung na-assess natin. Ang hindi po pwedeng gamitin doon ay 5. Limited po yung gamit sa 5, yung isa ay hindi pa pwedeng gamitin. Sa Region 1 po, nakapag-assess po tayo ng 69 na government hospitals. Restricted po yung gamit ng isa, lahat po nagagamit na. Yung public school buildings po, 536 yung na-assess natin. 56 po yung limited use, pwede nating ipaggamit ng limited use. Yung pong 31 hindi po pwedeng gamitin. Yun po yung ating assessment po sa mga public buildings
Nawala
po.
yung ano. Ayan. Okay.
So yun po yung ang total po ng na-assess na po natin mga structures, 2,800. Kasama na po dyan yung mga national bridges, flood control structures and other public buildings. So ang total po ay 3,041 public buildings and flood control structures.
So, how much will ito yung magiging damage sa gobyerno natin? Can we, dahil maraming mga public officials natin doon, mga LGUs na namihingi ng tulong dito sa atin. So, anong maitutulong natin sa kanila at this point in time? Meron na ba tayong nakaalat na pondo for these buildings or para doon sa mga schools na dapat na gawin natin ulit at ma-action na natin kaagad?
Sa ngayon po na-compute pa lang po namin yung estimate. Ang kailangan po natin sa rehabilitation, ang total po ay mahigit 1 billion, 1.091 billion.
Buong ano na to, kasama na
Lahat-lahat
APRA,
na po yan.
kasama na Ilocos Region.
Roads, yes sir.
Roads and bridges
Roads
and public schools.
Public
So 1
buildings.
billion. So, yun pala.
More or less lang po. That is an
More or less,
estimate, Mr. Chairman, kasi we have not comprehensively estimated the entire requirements at this time because the local government units have their own estimates on their public buildings. And yun din po sa restoration ng mga damaged historical sites like in Vigan. This will have to be undertaken by the National Historical Commission, and we are actually asking yung consultant nila, an expert nila on how to restore yung mga historical sites nila, so we don't have an estimate at this point in time.
Regarding naman to sa mga sa building code natin, magkano ba yung penalty diyan pag hindi sila sumunod doon sa ating building code? May violation yata, napakaliit lang eh. Yusek Cabral, are you aware of this? Maybe we need to amend that law. I heard parang something 10,000 ang
Man pong nakapasok na proposal to amend the building code. It's been 60 years. So, it's already filed at the lower house to amend and update the National Building Code. It's going to be called the Philippine Building Act. Nonetheless, sir, mababa po yung penalty, but it's also a criminal liability po.
May criminal
Kasi yung
liability
civil
na.
code po na nasa civil
As of
code.
now, walang criminal liability at mababa yung penalty, no?
Meron pong criminal liability, but of course, you have to establish due to sa due process po yung liability, whether it's methodology or design ang may problema. So, yun po yung proseso. But
Kaya
we cannot-
dapat siguro ma-fast track
Opo,
yan.
yung amendment ng building code.
Yes, so... Okay, you have any questions? Senator JV, meron ka pang ano?
I think
Senator
we
Villar?
since we'll be having session soon, I just like to commend Secretary Bonoan.
Yeah.
I know that you're a true professional, and I'm very happy that there's someone like you at the helm of the DPWH. And of course, all the people who are at my side during the builders, I can still see them, all their familiar faces. I commend all of you, and I thank you so much. And you have our support as always. Thank you, sir.
Now, what I can say, if I may, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman, all I
Secretary.
can say with the comments of the good senator is that he left a good working team in his department, so I don't have any problems with it this
galing.
time,
So
Mr. Chairman. Thank you po.
Yeah, naks. Okay. In closing, I would like to thank my colleagues who took time to attend the organizational meeting and briefing. And of course, Secretary and your team, sa inyong lahat. Saludo po kami sa inyo and keep up the good work at sa tayo sama-sama tulong-tulong Suportahan natin ang Marcos administration. Mabuhay po kayo. God bless you all.
Thank you po, Mr. Chairman.
Our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.